I was a Peace Corps volunteer in my younger years. It was a great experience, and any young college grad in the U.S. who is interested, I encourage you to follow through and apply. It was one of the best decisions I ever made. Anyways, I was posted in southern Africa in a small village in more or less the center of the Kalahari Desert. Out there in the bushveld, it was very easy to feel isolated. There were no Americans in the village I lived in, and the only English speakers, really, were my teacher colleagues at the junior high. I had learned the national language more or less from the 14 weeks of training, but the dialect of my post was such that it wasn't easily understandable. Think of it as if you've learned standard American English, then move into the Appalachian Hills. That kind of difference. The Kalahari Desert, you need to know, isn't a true desert in the sense that it's not this rolling wasteland of sand like the Sahara. The Kalahari has shepherd trees, thorny bushes, short-haired bark rough trees that can survive without rain for long periods of time. I mention this for what comes later. Anyways, I'm sort of given to melancholy if I have too much time on my hands. This is just my character. So in those days, I would sometimes move a sitting room chair from my little school-provided house hut out into my yard in the evening and look at the stars. The stars were too numerous to believe out there, being that I was removed from any nearby city, and there was no electric lights as the school's diesel-powered generator was shut off around 8. So one night I'm sitting there, sort of basking in my introvertedness, half hoping someone will happen by and join me. Something catches my eye out in the bush. The bush was usually just a dark mass that began several hundred yards out from my house, which, as I said, was on the school compound. The land for the school had long ago been cleared of trees, but right where the clearing stopped, the bush began again. Nothing was ever out there, although I saw big snakes from time to time, and since they were technically on school grounds, I always killed them with a shovel. The local folk freaked out about snakes. Other than that, the fauna kept clear of us, and the most troublesome creatures were scorpions and my nemesis, the camel spiders that ran around in late afternoon and evening. My point here is that I wasn't used to seeing movement out in the bush. What was even stranger was that this object seemed to be glowing like fire. It was moving very fast and steady, not someone running with a burning torch, but with a crackling fiery object about as big as a campfire, traveling at a high speed, chest level, all though obscured now and then by an intervening tree. Suddenly very alert, I watched it for as long as it was visible. The urge to tell someone was of course great, but as I said, there was simply no one else around. My reporting of this would be the next day, after I slept through the night sort of forgetting about it. I mentioned offhand what I had seen to my neighbor, a woman who was a home special education teacher and maybe a year or two older than me, who went to bed early. She was a native, for lack of a better word, African. Though not from the village, she considered the locals to be rather simple hicks, but she became very quiet when I told the story, as if I was telling her something unseemly, or she had thrown open a door onto an embarrassing sight. It was clear she wanted me to shut up. After a moment, and seemed like a considerable effort, she told me this was how witches traveled. She spoke English, and used the English word witch. It said that it was considered an ill omen to see. Within that same month, me and some other teachers hooked up the school TV VHS to a battery and watched a Stallone film, Cobra, I think. And while we were at the school, there was a freak rainstorm with thunder and lightning. When the video finished and we emerged to go home, someone was running up to us screaming my name. Lightning had struck my house, tearing a part of the roof off and sending a sheet of corrugated metal into my bed where I would have been sleeping. Anyways, let's just say I got lucky. Although it was very ironic that after this woman had mentioned an ill omen, a sheet of metal came crashing down to where I should have been, which surely would have impaled me.